Hello, everyone, and welcome to session 3 and the final session of our virtual Marine Money China 2020 conference. As mentioned earlier, we would have much preferred to have been at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Shanghai, as we do every year, greeting you all. But in times like these, we have little choice but to resume our networking and intelligence sharing online. Before we kick off the session, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of our prime and corporate sponsors for their support. You can see them on your screens now, and you've seen them throughout the day as well during our conference. I am your host, Andrew Oates, and today I'm very happy to introduce the theme of our final session, which is Chinese leasing in a post-COVID-19 environment. To kick off the discussion, Mr. James Chen of Smarine Advisors will present an overview of the Chinese leasing market in 2020. James, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. It's my pleasure to share our observation on Chinese market before the panel. For anyone not familiar with who we are, Smarine is a financial advisory firm specializing in leasing and financial arrangement in global shipping industry. Before I talk to the Chinese leasing in 2020, I like to mention where China stands in the 2019. Andrew, can you show the next slide? Andrew, can you show the next slide?
You should see it on your screen now.
Yes, can you turn to the next slide? Yes, this is just a cover page. I want to show the audience the total number of China.
Mm-hmm. So can you see it on your screen now? You should be able to see.
Yes, I can see. But I want to turn to the next slide.
I see. This one?
No, it's still the first cover page.
Oh, you can still see the cover page now?
Yes, still cover page. I'm not able to see the second one.
Okay, give me a moment, 1 second.
Okay.
Wait a second.
Okay.
Can you see it now?
No, still the cover page. Yes. Great. Okay.
Yes.
As you see, China keeps the #1 position as the ship finance supplying nations in the 2019. And if you run a back of the envelope calculation, you will see China's market share at low 20s. Next page, please.
Can you see the next page?
No, I'm not able to see. I'm stuck here. Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, from this slide, you can see there are 53 institutions worldwide are actively providing ship finance to the global shipping market. Among these 53 institutions, there are 14 Chinese institutions who are marked as red on the charts. So there are not a few, but dozens of institutions, Chinese institutions, are actively involving shipping finance. Next slide, please. Yes. Okay, this slide to show you the China ship finance kept steady growth from 2016 to 2019. The blue one is drawdown from banks, Chinese banks, mainly China Exim. The orange one is the drawdown amount from Chinese leasing, and the gray one indicates the insurance amount from Sino-Shore. In last year, Chinese leasing drawdown is $15.8 billion US. Next slide, please. Okay, on this slide, you can see top 10 Chinese leasing in terms of drawdown in last year. The number 1 is Bocomm, the second is ICBC, the third is CMB. There are 6 lessors enter the 1 billion club. Next slide, please. Okay, this slide shows the shipping portfolio owned by China lessors by the end of 2019. In 2019, China lessors jointly own $59 billion shipping portfolio. So it confirms leasing is no longer alternative sources to global shipping finance, but are mainstream capital sources. Next slide, please. Okay, now we can move to talk about Chinese leasing in this year. In the first half of 2020, the total drawdown from China leasing is $7.4 billion. We estimate in this year, the full year estimate will be $13.5 billion, drop 15% year on year. 2 lessors will achieve growth in this year, and the remaining institutions will focus on they will accept a slowdown and because they focus on risk management in this year. It reflects the receded finance demand from the shipping industry in this pandemic year. However, in the long run, although there are so many uncertainties in the global economy, we see Chinese economy keep growth, and the trade surplus also keep growth. And well, as we know, China owns trillions of US Treasury bonds and is selling some of them because of the conflict between US and China. So China needed to diversify the foreign currency reserve. So I believe as long as the Chinese economy keeps growth, China will continue the overseas lending. On this backdrop, Chinese leasing's appetite for new deal is intact beyond 2020. So that's our opinion. All right, Andrew, now I give back the screen to you.
Thank you very much, James, for giving us that brief overview. If you want to contact Smarine advisors, you can see their email on the screen here, and we apologize to the audience. There seemed to be a slight delay in the presentation slides. So moving on to our Chinese leasing panel, I'm very happy to introduce our moderator, Mr. Christoforos Bisbikos, partner at Watson, Farley and Williams. Before I give the floor to Christoforos, a couple of ground rules for the audience. All of the audience will be on mute during this webinar to ensure quality control, and you should have a control panel which pops up on the right of your screen, as you can see on the screen now. We encourage everybody to submit their questions if they have any. To submit your questions, you simply need to enter your question in the box at the bottom of the control panel where it says questions. I will receive them, and at the end of the webinar, I will ask the questions on your behalf. You can also collapse the menu by clicking on the little arrow on the top of the control panel. Now, if I may ask all the panelists to also turn on their microphones and their cameras. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Christoforos, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. And many thanks to James, who gave us a very colorful insight as to what happened basically in 2020, or at least what has happened to date, because we still have a couple of months to go. Let me kick off by making the relevant introduction, if that's okay with you. So I'm very happy to have here with us today Mr. Zhang from the Shipping Leasing Department of Shanghai Pudong Financial Leasing, Jerry Yang, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Ship Leasing Department of Minsheng Financial Leasing, Eric Yang, of course, who is the General Manager in the Ship Leasing Department of AVIC Leasing, Yang Zhao, who is an executive director of CMB Financial Leasing, and last but not least, Mr. Wang, who is the deputy head of marketing and sales department of Bocomm Financial Leasing. Now, we've all understood that there has been some kind of retraction in the Chinese leasing space after a fantastic 5-year period where the numbers were going up, and up. We saw banks going down in terms of their presence in ship finance, and Chinese leasing very timely substituted to a certain extent their presence. Now, I'm pretty sure that a lot of you are asking, why is Christoforos speaking about the post-COVID era when COVID is very much in play? Well, timing is very important. Year on year, November and December, historically, has been the time when at least Asian financiers are contemplating what they should be doing for the year to come. They determine the budgets for the following year, and they also ascertain long-term strategies. We've seen some positive news recently about potentially having a number of vaccines. So the news from the medical/pharmaceutical sector are quite positive. The question is, will all this be translated, will be carried over into shipping, which means that we will have a positive year, or at least, a positive half year. So let me ask my, first of all, let me address the first question to Eric. So I just wanted to ask you, Eric, have the downturn of 2020, is it significant for AVIC? Were the numbers the same as the previous year? And if so, why?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chris. This is Eric Yang from AVIC Leasing. I think it's difficult, quite difficult for everybody, and also very difficult for us. But the number, we didn't change our budget numbers for this year because several reasons. I think we almost on the right track to achieve our target right now, but the process is very difficult. I hope my next year budget will be adjusted based on the impact from the pandemic. That's my instant feedback to you.
Okay, so you expect some kind of adjustment. So you're not expecting the numbers of 2019 for 2021, or if things change, do you think that you could adjust your budget upwards during the course of the year?
I think first this year we still have $1 billion as budget, which is similar to last year in 2019. But this number does not reflect the impact from the pandemic. So I hope the next year budget will be reversed downwards to reflect the impact from the pandemic. That's my hope. Okay.
Jerry, what's your view on 2020? I mean, has it been quite quiet for you, exciting?
2020 is a very interesting year. Honestly, to shipping market, this year is not a bad year. Actually, to some special sectors, such as container carrier, liner business, tanker business, even dry, basically conventional shipping. 2020 is a good year. Well, this year has a lot of uncertainties. Unfortunately, leasing company basically was a kind of banking background financial institute rather than a shipping company. So that's to say we have no too much exposure to the market. For instance, freight rate driven tonnage. That's why this year is not really a good year to a leasing company like us. Might be a good year to shipping company, but not a leasing company. I tell you the truth. The bad side of this year is there are too much uncertainties, too much. COVID-19 and the election, and wow, just too many. There's too many uncertainties. That's why our risk side, and and the top management reviewed the business model. Unfortunately, business model of ship leasing is that, I mean, the bad side of leasing model is that when the market is going up, it is very hard for us to earn big bucks. When the market goes down, we have much more risk to lose money. Uncertainty is always here. Wow, how to keep the balance? That's why we see a different appetite, which is much more like banking world rather than shipping world to most of the major leasing companies. People like to work with big guys to chase the certainty, and that's why I think I agree, Eric. It might be the time for us to review the business model, to keep the balance, and given the fact leasing deal, most of the cases is a very long time deal. We talk about tenor, for example, it's about 10 years. This business, shipping business, is a 400-year business, and the ship leasing, although in the past 5 to 10 years we are rising very, very fast, but just the first phase of a marathon. That's the basic situation. So you know my point.
No, I fully agree with you. I mean, a lot of people were expecting that the market would collapse in 2020, and to a large extent, this has not happened. We have seen the cruise industry, of course, taking a big hit, but that's not pure shipping. So Zhao, for CMB, 2020, I guess an interesting year. So how has it been so far? And are you expecting any deals, in the next couple of months?
Hi, Chris. I think it's a very good question for us. It has been a quite interesting year. I think not only for us, but for the peer leasing companies as well. And but we think we made the right decision for this year, and we made the right budget in the beginning of this year. So we're almost achieving our annual budget up to the end of this month. But as you mentioned, we are always ready, and we are always preparing to do more transactions with our, no matter existing clients or new clients. So I wish we could close 1 or 2 or even more transactions within the last maybe less than 60 days, 50 days or 40 days, something like that. Yeah, we are trying to achieving to finance more ships within this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a secret that the end of the calendar year for a number of companies globally, it's key because they are trying to cover any loopholes that they have on the financing side. And historically, December has always been a very busy year, not only for you guys, consequentially for us. So okay, so what you say is quite interesting. How about Bocomm, Rock? Difficult year, and what do you expect for the next couple of months?
This year is quite a busy year, as I believe every leasing company is the same. That although the COVID-19 that gives some limitation on physical visit of the customers, but we indeed have quite a lot of inquiries from our existing clients and from some new channels, and it's a very busy year, and we keep going on from beginning till the end, and next year we forecast the same. Only way of some change next year, if the COVID-19 situation, the pandemic situation cannot be significantly reduced, then the sales activity is still limited. So we have to do more in office marketing, and also we have to fly more domestically to marketing more Chinese products as well.
Yeah, I think Bocomm is very well positioned because you also have a presence overseas. You're one of the few leasing companies which has a a shipping team abroad. I mean, I'm going to ask the rest of the panelists later whether this could potentially be a solution, given that traveling is not possible this year. And of course, we all hope that COVID will disappear, but maybe strategically having people on the ground is quite helpful. But can I ask Zhang Jun, Shanghai Pudong is a relatively new player, but has entered the market quite aggressively, I would say. How has 2020 been for you? I guess you don't have a lot of challenges in terms of restructurings because the portfolio is relatively new. But maybe you can share with us your experience so far this year.
Okay, thank you. And in 2020, and I think it's a difficult time for everybody, but to SPDB-FL, our shipping asset is growing very fast. And by the end of 2019, our shipping asset reached 700 million. By the end of 2020, the figure will be reached 1.5 billion. I think that is a double growth ratio. So we can learn from the figures that SPDB-FL, as a Chinese leasing company, is still staying in the shipping business and developing its shipping business. The figure, I think, also shows our confidence to shipping business. I think COVID-19 might cut the face-to-face communication, but it can't threaten the globalization, and it can't stop the development of the business of shipping. Thank you.
Thank you. And I mean, Eric has spoken about 2021. Rob has spoken a bit about 2021. Yang Zhao, 2021, have you determined your budget, or do you think that the budget is a figure which you guys speak about now and it could change in March or June, depending on how things evolve?
I think so. We had a review towards the performance of the shipping market in 2020. Actually, we are not that optimistic to the shipping market in the very beginning of this year. However, we saw that all the shipping companies, including the dry bulk ship owners, container ship owners, container liners, and crude tanker ship owners and product ship owners, they are all performing quite well. So I think we are up to now. I think even that there are some adverse effects caused by COVID-19, but we saw that the shipping market, especially for our clients, the shipping owners, they are performing quite well, even better than 2019. So I have to say that the shipping market, including our ship owners, our clients, they gave us more confidence towards the coming year. And we also saw that the new order book for the order book for the new ships in the Chinese shipyard or worldwide has reached a historical low level, and so that I think personally, I think for the new building finance demands in the market for 2021 will not be that much as previous years, especially considering the stronger cash position due to the outperforming shipping market this year. I think the top tier ship owners, including some very good ship owners, they have changed their cash position quite a lot. However, from our point of view, we are always preparing to grow our fleet, to grow our portfolio. And I think for the 2021 generally, I think we will still have to prepare the same budget as we had in the past 4 or 5 years. But yeah, so yeah, this is my personal feeling. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, this is good news. Jerry, are you expecting that budget-wise you will go back to 2018-19, or you will remain at the levels of 2020?
No. 2020 is a special case. It's a special case, honestly. Basically, my expectation is about 1 billion US next year. 1 billion US. We are returning on the right track. First of all, the uncertainty shall not be there next year. We see, let's say, the result of the election, right? We see the hope of finish COVID-19, which introduced big uncertainty to the whole market. And we see the historical low new building price, which is very, very good to ship owner who has a lot of money, cash position. Moreover, we see my personal view is that in terms of the exchange rate, is that the US dollar will become stronger against the Chinese yuan. The current position is kind of special. There are a lot of considerations. I believe not only economy-wise. So we will be on the proper track. I mean the whole market, and we will start it. Let's say we will start to do new deal. First of all, second-hand ships, and it is possible for us to do some new building finance, but it is challenging, and there are a lot of competitions, and the owners are very, very demanding. But anyway, we see the chances. We see the balance between risk and the return, and along with the new situation of the market, I believe there are possibility for us to see long-term commitment from proper owners. I mean, it might be possible for us to figure out long-term charter party against long-term charter party. People like us can just to start to pour money, right? And I am quite confident about next year, actually.
Okay, just very, very briefly, Rock and Eric, budgets, levels of 2019 or adjusted budgets similar to 2020, or so a bit of a hybrid, a bit of a mix?
It's difficult to say. It's still early for us to determine the budget. Usual practice it will be started in next February or March. So just as I said before, it's my hope next year budget will be reversed downwards to reflect the impact from the pandemic, because this year, although we have pandemic, but we didn't adjust our budget. So it's quite difficult for us to do the budget. And 50% of our drawdown was coming from previous deals. So only this year's new deal only contributes 50%. And then, it's very difficult for us to let's develop new clients because we can't face-to-face contact with them, and we can't do the physical due diligence to overseas clients. So it's quite difficult for each other to trust each other, and it's difficult to us to convince the board to accept a new client. So this year we only focus on our existing quality clients and the reputable market clients. So I don't know what happens next year, but there is good sign there, as Jerry mentioned about the Biden and the vaccine is coming soon. And also we have a Chinese V-shaped rebound. So all these good signs are there, but there is a lot of uncertainties there. So we haven't decided next year's budget. I hope it will be reversed down a little, at least. Thank you.
Are you considering changing the way you conduct business? You know, because you mentioned that it's very difficult for you to get to know people. Are you considering maybe establishing a small presence in key jurisdictions, like let's say in Germany, or you know, or do you think that you will go back to what you were doing once this crisis is over?
I think it's opposite way. I think this question you should ask Bocomm and Minsheng. Their presence performed very well in this pandemic outside of China. You should ask them. But for us, because of China dual circulation policies, it may cause us to build up a new, more stable development rather than over rely on the overseas market. So which means we may refocus some focus on the domestic market maybe next year. So
okay.
Just the opposite way, as you said. Yeah.
Yeah. Zhao, do you think strategically this year has shown to you that you should change the way you get to know new clients? You know, maybe what I said earlier about putting people globally in key jurisdictions is something that you have considered or no? I think you must be on mute because I can't hear you.
Yeah. Okay. So now you can hear me. Yeah. I think we are always considering to set up some offices overseas because especially in these difficult times, we found that even though we are going to travel domestic China, we have some limitations when there is one or two special cases in the city. So I think the overseas office definitely will help us to explore the local market, especially I think in the European countries. And also we already had a overseas office which is established in Ireland for aviation finance. And to be very honest, actually we planned to set up an office in Hong Kong, but the plan has been delayed due to the COVID-19 effect. I think when COVID becomes how to say that, I think maybe I think the company are still thinking to set up overseas office, but not recently. Maybe I think we are still waiting to see the things are turning better. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, James. One question to you. One quick question, because we have our fellow panelists here representing specific leasing companies. You speak to the other leasing companies as well, which are not here. So you said in your presentation in the end that the messages that you're getting for 2021 are positive, provided that China continues to grow. So in terms of budget, the messages that you're getting from the other leasing companies is that they will go back to what they were doing up until recently, up until the crisis started, or are they, conservative, a bit picky in terms of who they are keen to finance? What's your sentiment in general for the next year?
I try to give a big picture, from the more general level. I just mentioned, because China needed to diversify the foreign currency reserve, and so they will continue to overseas lending. And in Chinese overseas lending, only probably 0.5% has a collateral. So you can imagine the remaining 50% is purely on the credit. So ship finance is a very good asset. I mean, because they provide a collateral. So why Chinese financial institutions stop the interest for the ship finance? It's still better than finance based on the credit. So that's why I believe as long as the Chinese economy keeps growth, the appetite for ship finance will continue. So that's my opinion. for next year.
Yeah, you mentioned dollars. Now, dollars earlier this year was a big question mark. So I want to ask you, so far, the leasing houses' liquidity derived from, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, from international bonds, you know, and also from refinancing projects. Leasing houses were back funding the projects after completion. I don't know, 6 months after, a year after, with Chinese banks, but also with international banks. Have you seen less appetite from the international banks to finance these projects these days? Because I know that, for example, a number of banks have withdrawn further from the shipping industry. Are they still talking to you in the same way that they were talking to you prior to the crisis? Maybe, Rob, you could give us your feedback from Bocomm's perspective.
Yes, the Chinese leasing companies are still supported by various capital sources, including banks and bonds, capital markets. So although that many banks are withdrawing from the shipping, but as far as from our observation, that many foreign banks are still very keen to do business with to do a refinancing for Chinese leasing companies. So that is why Chinese leasing companies are continuously driven by these funding sources and to expand. So to some circumstances, that all the Chinese leasing companies, they have very big, strong shareholder group, and they would like to see to grow some overseas portfolio. But on the other hand, that every company is driven by this US dollar money or the RMB money. So once the people is supported by plenty of money, so they have such internal inner expansion things. So as long as we see that everything will continue in next year. Yeah.
Okay, so no liquidity issues for you, Zhao, for CMB. Same level of interest from the international lenders.
Yeah, I think we are facing the same situation with Bocomm Leasing. Yeah. So,
Eric. Oh, sorry. Please.
I mean that we feel nothing different. Yeah. Comparing with previous years. Yeah. Mm.
Thank you, Eric.
Yes, I think I can agree with both of them. But to be honest, as a leasing house, we now realize the US dollar liquidity is not an infinity for leasing house, especially when you have Donald Trump to give you a hit or give you a sanction due to the political reasons. It's very risky for us to think about that. So this year, our company will try to manage our liquidity risk cautiously than previous years because of these uncertainties. That's why I also said maybe we should work together to promote RMB, which is our stress for all these leasing house. And I think it's also very good news for the ship owners, Chinese shipyards, because of the exchange rate risks right now they are facing. So maybe we should do that, promote RMB. Yes.
Yeah, for new building projects, I guess this would make sense. But would you also consider utilizing other currencies for international projects like euros or?
I think yes, euros is also available for our European clients once their income or revenue come from the US basis project. But if their income comes from US dollar, we still try to convince them to use US dollar. So it's also very difficult for them to bear the exchange rate risk.
Okay, thank you, Eric. That's very interesting. Jerry, from your end, same level of interest in terms of refinancing, or things are a bit more difficult these days? You must be on mute. I can't hear you. Sorry.
Currently, we are facing the quantitative ease policy globally. So liquidity, I think, is not a big problem. Uncertainty, for example, political reasons, shall be something we shall consider. Well, I believe next year we have more certain market.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So basically, the message from all of you, if I'm not mistaken, is that Chinese leasing is here to stay, and the long-term commitment is a given, irrespective of what happened the past 12 months or so. Maybe Rock, you could start.
You are talking about the next year?
No, I'm talking about long term, because as Jerry was saying earlier, these leasing projects start now, and they could last up until 10, 15 years. For some operating leases, we've seen even 25 years. So the question is, for the international ship owner, can they expect a long-term commitment?
Sure. The Chinese state-owned company always long-term, and the management, their view and strategy based on Chinese leasing industry to be a reliable counterparty to global ship owners.
Yeah. Zhao, you share the same view, I presume?
Yes, we have the same view. Actually, we are thinking shipping always needs commitment, and not for the shipping business, but for the people who are doing shipping business. And especially when we CMB Financial Leasing, we share the same name with China Merchants Group, and which was initially started their business from shipping. So we have the inheritance from the group as well. So I think we will stay. We will stay in this shipping business, and we will have commitment with our clients in the future.
Yeah, Jerry, same message.
For sure. Yeah, I am a shipping guy, 20 years already. So.
Yeah. Eric,
you guys even here?
Yeah.
Yes.
And
I think we have been here for 10 years. I think we will continue to be here to support the ship owners. And you can see from our terms, we offer at least 7 to 12 years tenders, and the profile even longer than that. So that's our commitment.
Okay. One other question that I wanted to raise is, because we had another webinar back in May, if I'm not mistaken. I'm getting old, so maybe my memory is not very strong, but at that time, everybody was very concerned about how shipping would evolve in this year, and they were very concerned because of what happened on the aviation space, and they were expecting a wave of requests for restructurings. I know that the cruise industry, yes, we all know what has happened. I'm sure that there are some requests in that space, but from your experience, the past 5-6 months, have you seen the level of requests for restructuring that you were expecting, or were you positively surprised that not many requests have come through? Rock, maybe you would like to start?
Yeah, this year at the beginning, that actually we are quite a little bit nervous about the container shipping industry, but later the fact proves that yeah, this fact give more strengthen people's confidence in this container liner industry. Overall speaking, that this year the performance of our portfolio existing customers that give us quite big confidence in our past few years performance, that very few people meeting some difficulties, and outside China, inside China, and overall speaking, our portfolio is quite performs quite good, quite well. Of course, every industry they have up and down during this economic cycle. That some restructuring may happen, but we think everything should be manageable. Yeah, that is yeah.
Okay. Eric?
Yes. Oh, I think we did not notice a lot of restructuring requests from our clients, but some of our clients, they are already quit the market, like the bulk, I think bulk. They are selling all their bulkers. So I think that's another trend we follow cautiously. They still want to be there, or they want to do other things? I think, as Rock said, it's up and down. It's normal for shipping business. But are you still want to be there, or you want to do something else? That's another level things we have to consider about.
Yeah, but it's not the catastrophe that people predicted, I would assume.
No. We haven't noticed that.
Yeah. Maybe your credit committees, I'm not talking about AVIC, in general, can also see that shipping is quite, yes, it's a very cyclical business, but ultimately, if you bet with the right players, you're bound not to lose. Yang Zhao, has CMB seen a lot of requests for restructurings?
No, but in adverse, we received some requests for prepayment. So that means that our ship owners, they have very strong cash positions here, and we do not foresee any potential notice or request for the coming year to restructure the current portfolio. Overall, I think the current portfolio of CMB Financial Leasing, the shipping portfolio, is quite healthy. And this year we did a lot of homework ourselves. That means that we are trying to do some of our internal job in order to manage our portfolio better than we had in 2019 or 2018. I think we are, as I just mentioned before, we have confidence for the coming year.
Okay. Jerry, bad news, good news, not many requests? I think you're on mute again. Yeah.
It's okay now, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No, not really. This year, the whole portfolio generally performs well. Yeah. As I spoke, this year we have an unexpected good year for conventional shipping in general.
Okay. Yeah. Zhang, I'm not going to ask you this question because your company is very new in the industry.
Yes.
So it's good news for you then, because you're entering, I guess, at the right time.
Yes, our business is starting 2018, and most project is funding in 2019 and 20. So I think we have not received any request for restructuring. Yeah, but I think maybe next year there will not be either.
Yeah. And James, I guess the message that you get from the other leasing companies, and through the ship owners, generally is that there hasn't been a huge, wave of restructuring requests.
No, there are three bubbles in the world. The first is Chinese real estate. The second is probably the U.S. stock. The third is the Japanese bond market. So compare with those three bubbles, you never heard any shipping bubble, right? In recently. So as long as there's no bubble, it's just a cyclical issue. It's not a structure issue. So I think all the shipping industry and the leasing industry will overcome the short-term ups and downs. I didn't heard any restructuring request for other lessors.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you all for the discussion. It's been very interesting. I hope that the people who have listened to what you had to say found it they found it to be interesting as well. Andrew, the mic over to you. Maybe there are questions from the audience.
Yeah, thank you very much, Christoforos. So we have quite a few questions, so I'm just going to go through them one by one. A question for Shanghai Pudong Development Bank Financial Leasing, Mr. Zhang Jun. You're a new player with a relatively small portfolio. Do you have to be more competitive on pricing or terms in order to do new business with clients who are already clients of other leasing companies? Zhang Jun?
Sorry, I mute.
Yeah.
In fact, all our SPVs is incorporated in China free trade zone, and most of the nearly all the capital comes from domestic banks, such as ICBC or import-export banks. So, but in fact, the interest rate is nearly no different with the overseas banks. So I think for our strategy in 2021, and SPDB Leasing is aiming to build up 100 billion RMB assets, and therefore shipping will be an important part of the leasing asset. Probably shipping sector will occupy 1/3 of the amount to be funded next year. I think the speed of SPDB Leasing and as well as the shipping sector will not slow down next year. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Now we have a number of technical questions. It's 3 technical questions. I'm going to ask them all together, and maybe each of you can comment on them. So one is about margins. It says, what's the margin range and what's the trend for margins? The other is, what's the typical repayment profile for new buildings? What's the average time it takes to close a deal, a Chinese leasing deal? And also, what kind of projects are you looking at nowadays? So if you can, each of you in turn, maybe we start with Jerry, you can comment a little bit on what kind of projects you're seeing, what kind of pricing are you given, how long does it take to close a deal, what's the typical repayment profile, what's the margin? Sorry. Jerry, you're on mute. If you can unmute yourself.
Oh.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. In terms of margin, I believe market level. Although Minsheng Financial Lease is quite famous for a little bit higher margin than top tier big guys, for example, ICBC Leasing or CMB Leasing, we are still let's say we're still trying our best to provide market level pricing. And to see the trend, I believe next year the pricing may be a little bit higher than this year, because this year we have a panic situation and people are chasing for top tier clients, and we have a quantitative ease situation. Hence, the pricing from the quotation from leasing side shall be lower than the level we should be next year, given the fact the market is returning normal situation. We will be log on. We will log on the market level. In terms of the tenor and the profile for a new building, I believe shall be no more than 15 years in terms of the profile. In terms of the tenor, I think different companies, let's say each transactions may have some special situation, special arrangements, but basically 15-year shall be a, let's say, proper level for both lessee and lessor. Other questions? What is it?
Thank you very much. That's very informative.
Okay.
Perhaps turning to Rock at Bocomm. I mean, if a client comes to you for financing these days, what kind of terms and what can they expect?
That's very good questions. Many ship owners asking the same question at the beginning. Yeah, so I would like to say that there is a consistency in our company. So our term will not deviate too much each year. So our terms consistently be the market level. So compared to the Chinese leasing industry. So we do not intend to compete with the banks. So we still are offering a market level terms in terms of margin, leverage, tenor, everything we just doing the Chinese leasing industry averagely can provide. And I say a company with a quite some scale for shipping portfolio already. We are definitely in certain products we may be a little bit aggressive, but overall speaking, we will keep our margin, our terms stable. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Eric Yang.
Yes. Okay. Actually, I should say it depends, right? I think this year and maybe next year is quite difficult. I see at least it's quite different with previous years. A lot of uncertainty is there. So we may focus more on the counterparty risk rather than just the vessels and the employment for these vessels. That's the big change I think we are facing right now. I think efficiency is one of our strengths. It normally takes 2 months from signing the TS to withdraw the fund, so which is very efficient from the leasing house point of view. In terms of the margin, I think all these years we are trying our best to reduce our margins. If you can't take the decrease in libraries into account, it's a huge decrease. All these years, so we will continue to do that to try to be more competitive with our peers here. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Moving on, maybe for Mr. Yang Zhao, one question is, how will you evaluate a new project in terms of ESG, or how has the Poseidon principles been implemented in the new project portfolio? And then another question from another member of the audience. What's your view on the Poseidon principles? Is it your intention to sign up to the Poseidon principles within the next 12 months?
Sorry, are these questions all for me to answer, or for everybody?
Yes. Okay, so I will ask you first.
Okay, so would you please repeat your first question? I thought the second question is about the Poseidon principle, right?
The question is basically, what's your view on ESG, or environmental social governance?
Okay, environmental social governance. Okay, I think it's a very new question and a very challenging question for me, because I know little about that so far. Actually, some of our existing clients and potential clients had asked the same question regarding the view towards the environmental protection issues, and I think we are always following the general trend of shipping finance. But that there might be some delay from the general concept to put the concept into practice. So come to your second question for the Poseidon principle. We have seen some requirements from the refinance with our banks, with our financiers. So we discussed with some of our clients. I think some of them had already start discussion directly with their existing financiers, which is also our financiers as well. So so come back to the Posidonia principle. I think we will stay aligned with the our peer Chinese leasing companies.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zhang. Christoforos, Watson Farley was instrumental in drafting the Poseidon principles. I mean, from your experience working with the Chinese leasing companies, what are you seeing so far?
Yeah, so we haven't seen a huge request to incorporate the relevant language into the leases, but we are explaining that going forward, if one needs to refinance a project, irrespective of whether there is a central, guidance to, to sign up to the Poseidon principles, you really need to have the language into the charters, such that ultimately you will make the leases bankable. It would then be easier for a bank to finance a lease which has the relevant provisions into the documents. So, but we haven't seen any significant push from the Chinese leasing community to, to have the relevant provisions incorporated.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on a little bit to new buildings. The question is, if there are fewer new building investments in 2021, will the competition between Chinese lease companies increase for the big clients who are still building? Perhaps I can direct the question to Rock.
New building, yes. In the last 2-3 years, we have done quite a lot of new building projects compared to second-hand sale and leaseback. And this year is super low year for new buildings. Next year, everyone forecasts that new building orders will getting to be more and more. So we definitely looking at some new building projects. The other hand, I believe every leasing companies are looking at the same. As long as the product is good product with a good other party and good cash flow, that everyone will. I think everyone is keen to finance that. Yeah.
How about your view, Mr. Zhang Jun, at SPDB in terms of new building projects? What are you financing new buildings these days?
Yes, we are doing some bulk and containers these days in domestic shipyard and carrier yards.
Okay. Yeah, and a final question here is the differing factor for lease companies was historically higher leverage and higher pricing. Has this changed? Is there now more direct competition with international banks with lower leverage and lower pricing? Eric?
Yes, I think we are not competing with international banks in all the and from the recent practice, I think our clients still need a high leverage needs from us, so we will continue to do that. And for the good clients, let's say top tier clients, they are asking for over 90% leverage, which is normal right now. So we are also doing that. So which means we will still providing high leverage for our clients.
Can I just say? Can I just also add to what Eric said? Things are very different compared to what were 3 or 4 years ago. I mean, in the past, the leasing companies were only doing business with the liner companies. They were expecting that the charter would be attached to the project. Now it's completely different business. You can see low leverage deals with low pricing, and you can see high leverage deals. It depends on the project. It depends on the client. I mean, I'm sorry for stepping in, and if any of you disagrees, but you know, Chinese leasing has become extremely flexible. They can do any type of project.
Yes, I think you're right.
So Christoforos, I mean, if you're speaking with one of your ship owning clients in Greece, let's say, these days, would you still recommend them to take the Chinese financing?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the first reason is that you have to open the gate. You have to do it because we have seen the numbers. The numbers are the biggest evidence that the future is Chinese leasing. Yes, there are hurdles. There are hurdles, maybe political hurdles, but ultimately you see the appetite is still there, no matter what. So I would definitely do that. In fact, you know, if I have any contact, the first thing I'm advising them is you have to try this avenue.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great news. I'm sure that the panelists will be happy to hear that as well. So this brings us to the end of our discussion today. We're out of time. There are a few questions that have gone unanswered, but for those questions, we will follow up in an email and hopefully answer them later today or tomorrow. I would like to thank all of the panelists, Christoforos, Jerry, Eric, Yang, Rock, Mr. Zhang, and James for sharing your insights with us today. For those of you listening in from the audience, this webinar is being recorded and it will be posted on our website later today or tomorrow. And we will also send that follow-up email as I mentioned. That concludes our virtual Marine Money China 2020 conference. We hope you've all enjoyed the sessions today and received some good insight into recent Chinese ship finance activities and opportunities going into 2021. Hopefully, the COVID situation will also be better controlled next year, and we will be able to also travel and also host our conference in Shanghai as we do every year. So thank you very much all again for tuning in. This is your host, Andrew Oates from Marine Money, signing out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.